The month of October usually kicks off the busiest time of the year. Whether it's in the West or in my own country, India, October is the beginning of so many festivals and holidays. This year, I invite you to take a pause with me and indulge in a mindful drawing exercise, even if it is just for 30 minutes. The concept that we're going to be exploring today is called aura, and aura in Zentangle speak is a line that is drawn close to a previously drawn line that mimics its path like a halo. Aura is a technique that we use in many of our tangles and tangle enhancers, and honestly speaking, it is one of my go-to techniques when it comes to making Zentangle drawings. In this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you some simple ways of including aura in your drawings. But before we dive into it, I have some super exciting news for all of you. This year, in October 2024, I'm co-hosting the Mindfultober challenge on Instagram with 3 other amazing artists, Yuta Schneider, Mel Rai, and Shelly Scale. Together, we are bringing you a whole month of mindfulness and creativity. The idea behind Mindfultober is to give ourselves some time for creativity and self-care in what can usually be a very, very busy time of the year. For more information on the challenge, don't forget to check out our Instagram profiles. The challenge has 4 different prompts, and all of us will be sharing our unique take on these prompts during the month. So you can follow along and learn new concepts with each of us. And each of us are also going to be posting one tutorial. So make sure that you also follow Mel's, Yuta's, and Shelly's channels as well, and have a look at their tutorials. I'll link all of these channels in the description box below. Okay, so that's all the information out of the way, and now it's time to get drawing. So my prompt for Mindfultober is aura, and we'll be making an abstract drawing with this particular prompt. And to get started for the first part of the tutorial, you're going to actually need a sketch pad or some sort of loose sheets on which you can practice the technique. And then of course you'll need your main sketch paper or your drawing paper on which we're going to be making the actual drawing. So let's actually explore the concept of aura first. And over here, I'm going to demonstrate a few examples, and hopefully this will give you a deeper understanding of what aura is. So as you can see, I'm basically drawing a triangle over here, and then I'm sort of giving it an outline. And this is basically how aura works. So whenever you have a shape, whether it's a geometrically structured shape or whether it's like a blobby abstract shape, you can just basically go around it and sort of give it an outline, and it will basically give you an aura. And so same way, we're just going to see a few more examples over here where I'm just going to keep adding the outline to the shapes that I'm drawing. And it almost gives a ripple effect sort of a feeling. It's almost like you throw a pebble into a water body and then it creates ripples. It's pretty much the same thing. And so for the circle one over here, I've actually done the aura inside. So this is basically to tell you that auras can happen outside as well as inside. And now what you see me doing over here is creating a partial aura where I've taken just a little section of that outside edge, and now I'm just building more auras on top of it. And this is also an interesting way to use aura in your designs. When you make 2 parallel lines, or when you make a single line and you just keep on sort of adding parallel lines to it in the same fashion or in the same manner, then that also becomes an aura. So whenever you're connecting 2 tangles and you have interconnected lines, then you can give aura to those connecting lines, and that'll sort of give you a more cohesive look, or it'll sort of bring your elements together. And then another interesting way to use aura is to break those strokes and create a water wave like aura where you have these little breaks and dashes. And so this one is a disconnected or like a broken aura, but again we're still following the same outline. So on this shape, as you can see, I've done some of these on the outside, and now I'm just adding a few on the inside. So aura is basically the simplest technique in the Zentangle method because you already have a given shape. which can be your tangle, or it can be a tangle enhancer, or it can just be a filler. And then all you have to do is just mimic the shape and create an outline or like a boundary. And it can happen on the outside or it can happen on the inside. And it's a fairly versatile tool to have in your arsenal when it comes to mindful drawing, because the more auras you keep on drawing, the more you get into a Zen state of mind. So now what we're going to do is apply this technique onto a fresh paper, which is going to be your main drawing or your main sketch paper. And so for this tutorial, I'm actually going to be focusing on using more of the aura rather than the drawing or the shape aspect of the tangles that we usually do in Zentangle drawings. So I want you to really get immersed in the process of using auras, which can be so relaxing and it puts you in a Zen state of mind. So I'm starting off by creating these abstract blobby shapes all over my paper. And once I have these, I'm going to start adding auras around each of these. And so once you actually get into this process and once you start adding auras one by one, and imagine if my voice was not playing in the background over here, but you instead had like some really soothing Zen music playing in the background, then by now you would have already gone into that immersive Zen state where you would be sort of completely absorbed and consumed by the process of creating these auras. And it also requires a little bit of concentration, because you kind of want to do a good job of mimicking each of those strokes beautifully so that it creates that beautiful ripple effect and almost like an optical illusion also sometimes, depending on how close your elements are. And it's okay if some of the lines tend to meet or if they get interconnected or if they touch each other, and it's okay if some of the auras are not exactly as equidistant as you imagined, because as we say in Zentangle, there is no such thing as mistakes, and whatever happens is for eventually your own good or your own creativity to blossom. So there are no mistakes in Zentangle, so feel free to just get absorbed in the process and not really worry about small tiny flaws, because at the end of it, only we know the flaws. Nobody else really knows them. Nobody else actually even notices them. It's like you have to really ask someone to pinpoint at the exact flaw that you think is in your head, and they're not able to do that. So you have to really show it to them and say, hey, this is where I made a mistake. And then they're like, I don't think it was a mistake. I really don't think this was not part of the drawing. So anyway. Okay, so completely gone off track here, but as you can see my progress, I have now moved on to using the blue pen, and I'm adding the blue auras now. So the pens that I'm using over here, you've seen these a bunch of times on my feed. I use the Ohuhu dual tip markers, which have a fine liner tip on one side and a brush pen nib on the other side. And I quite like these. These are very affordable, and I love the colors. I love the range of colors that they have. So similarly, once I've done the blue one, I'm just going to move on to this other sort of teal aqua shade, and I'm just going to add a few more auras like this. So right now what I'm basically doing is just adding inner auras, but you can totally do this on the outside as well. It totally depends on the kind of look that you're going for. And there's absolutely no right or wrong way of doing this. Like, you can totally just have fun with breaking the rules over here, because there are no rules to begin with. So yeah, just do what your heart says. It's as simple as that. Follow your heart. For the outside spaces, I'm basically just using the brush pen side of these pens, and I'm adding just a few lines, like some interconnected lines, which are going to form a background pattern. And eventually, I'm going to aura these out as well. And I think you've probably figured out by now that there is no structure to this drawing, because it is a mindful, relaxing exercise and it's more intuitive than planned. So, the mindfulness aspect is something that I'm really prioritizing over here, and not really focusing on doing everything step by step in a particular sequence. I'm just doing what my heart says, and I'm actually recording the voiceover much later, after I've done the drawing, because while I was drawing, I was completely engrossed in the process. So now I'm kind of just describing it to you. So while drawing, I was not really following a particular sequence, and I just wanted to enjoy what I was doing. I, in fact, had music on that time, and yeah, I was just really, in the moment. All these little door banging and, these car horn sounds that you're hearing, that's just, I'm in a different place today. Sorry about that, you guys. I'm recording the voiceover in a different space than my usual setup. So the next thing that I did was bringing in my black pen, because of course my Zentangle drawings have to have some black in them. And here I actually took inspiration from this tangle called Diva Dance in the Zentangle Method, and I tried to add in little dips and curves, wherein we basically increase the line weight in certain sections and then we color those black. And I think I'll have to pause the recording for a tad bit because my neighbors are talking. So hold on for a second while I fix this voice issue. Okay, they're gone. They were just waiting for the elevator. And I'm in an apartment which is right next to the elevator. So anyway. So I was talking about how I took inspiration from Diva Dance, which is a tangle in the Zentangle Method. And you basically add these dips and curves, and then you keep on adding auras. So interestingly, aura can be a part of a tangle itself, in the sense that when we create our tangles, we have these step outs, we have step-by-step breakdowns of each of those tangles. And one of the steps can be aura. So aura can actually be integrated into the visual language of how a tangle is created. And Diva Dance is one such tangle. It's a great example of how to use auras, and also how to increase line weight in certain sections of your tangle. So here, as you can see, I'm basically just creating dips and curves on certain sections of that little wave that I've drawn, or like that wavy line rather. And so basically once you add the dip on it, the structure of the line changes a little. And so what we have to do is we have to now follow that line when we draw the next aura. And then again, if you end up adding line weight on the next line, then in the third line, you again have to now follow the second line. So it's an interesting thing to experiment with, because your aura keeps on changing basis the line weight that you have increased in the previous line. And I know it sounds a little technical, but once you start doing it, it'll kind of become muscle memory, and it'll make a lot more sense once you actually start drawing it. For now, just basically draw these beautiful lines, add line weight, and then the second line should mimic the first line, and then the third line should mimic the second line, and so on and so forth. And that's how you can integrate aura with Diva Dance. Of course, I love adding some gold in my Zentangle drawings, and the combination of blue and gold is something that I love. So at this point, you will see me coloring some of these inside sections, and I wanted this to have like a slightly glam, stylish look, which is why I'm going for big chunks of gold over here. But of course, in case you want to use another filler pattern over here, or you want to try a different tangle, that's also a possibility. So you don't have to follow this tutorial to the T. I always say this, that all my tutorials are open to interpretation. They're all open for experimentation. So I'd love to see all the various versions and variations that you create out of this. So yeah, for now you can just see me coloring this in gold. Once that was done, I moved on to adding some gold to the background lines as well. And again, the idea over here is to just start filling up the background with more lines and more auras basically. You can play with different colors of pens that you have with you. So here I'm playing with different shades of blue as well as a gold pen, along with some black. But if you want to try and experiment with more colors, then that's also an interesting take on this drawing, and you can actually create some interesting retro inspired or rainbow inspired multicolored designs, which can be really trippy with a hippie vibe to them. So that's also something that you can do. Here, as you can see, I'm basically just adding a few more background aura lines, and with this dark blue pen, what I actually did was I started to make the broken aura lines, so that there are these little dashes and gaps in the middle, and I try to use this as a filler pattern in the background instead of just doing the plain simple aura lines, because I think this gives a nice water wave like an effect. And so again, I mean, this is not very literal, it's just some thoughts in my head that I'm just trying to put on paper, just with some semblance of water waves. It's not an accurate depiction. So again, this is open to interpretation. If you don't want to do it this way, you can definitely try and experiment with other ways of doing auras. With the background pattern done, I decided to go back to the original fluid shapes that I had drawn, the blob-like shapes, and I basically gave them some line weight because I wanted them to stand out better against the background. And these kind of steps that I'm going to add on to my drawing now, these are totally optional, because each of us are going to be using a different brand of pens. We're going to have different nib sizes, we're going to have a different line weight, the pressure with which we use the pens is going to be different. So these are all optional steps, and you can basically decide to skip or use these steps based on how your drawing is shaping up. So there are no hard and fast rules over here, but I'm just going to walk you through my process so that hopefully it'll give you some more ideas which you can use, if not in this drawing, then maybe in some future drawing. And so here my intention was to add a little bit of more line weight because I wanted the blobs to stand out better against the background, and also because I wanted to increase the contrast a little bit, and I wanted more black and white differentiation. Um, it felt like the blobs were getting lost and I wanted them to stand out more. So contrast seemed like a great choice to use over here. And you can, of course, do this with a thicker nib pen as well. But I'm just using the same one and applying a little bit more pressure and just going back and forth and adding a few dips and curves as well to the lines. And that's how I'm getting this effect. With the line weight done, I wanted to add some small dots. So I'm just going around my drawing and just rotating it all over and just adding a few dots here and there. Again, they're probably representing tiny little bubbles. And this is just a thought in my head. Maybe they don't look like bubbles to you. But again, that's what abstract drawings are. We sometimes make different connections and we all resonate with these drawings in a different way. And now I'm just adding some gold outlines, and you'll see me in a bit also adding some gold filler elements here and there. So I'm also going to be coloring some sections in gold because I again wanted the gold to pop out a little bit. So in some of the sections here, I'm just going back and increasing the amount of gold around those black dots. Next, I wanted some more blue in the drawing, especially the dark blue. So I used the brush pen side of my markers and I added some blue dots. And since I wanted the blobs to stand out even more against the background, I went back in with my blue pen and decided to color in the outlines. And I basically love pops of color against white. That's the kind of style that you'll see a lot in my work. I love neutral white bases, or I love like other neutral colored bases, and then on top of that I just create pops of color with pattern. And that's kind of like my visual style and language. So here I'm just doing the same thing because this kind of comes naturally to me. So I'm just adding a little bit more blue around those edges to make it pop out a little bit more. And yeah, that is pretty much it. That is the tutorial for today. Now, of course, you can go back and refine this even more. You can actually go back and add more gold, more white, more aqua blue, or other colors here and there to refine this or to give it your own personal touch. But this is pretty much my 30 minutes of mindfulness and my 30 minutes of using aura in a mindful manner. And I quite like the way this has turned out. I especially love the gold shining in the light, and you can see me removing the washi tape, and the drawing is coming out beautifully in all its glory. So yeah, so this was a very, very relaxing exercise for me, and I'm so glad that I got an opportunity to demonstrate this to all of you during this beautiful month of October, where I'm hosting Mindfultober with 3 other wonderful hosts. And so yeah, so this is my drawing, and I'm so happy to share this with you, and I can't wait to see what all of you create. Whenever you create a version of this, don't forget to post it on Instagram and give a follow to all the co-hosts. And in fact, we're running a little giveaway also over here. So as soon as you make a version of this, you will be eligible with one entry into the Mindfultober challenge, and that'll give you an opportunity to win a bunch of exciting prizes from all of us. So yeah, so make sure that you check out the details on our Instagram profiles, and I can't wait to see what you create. Bye bye, have fun, and keep creating.